Immigration policies in the United States have always been a hot topic, but 2025 has seen some states take unprecedented steps to enforce deportation. From stricter laws to active crackdowns, mass deportation efforts are reshaping communities and sparking national debate. But which states are leading this controversial charge? Today, we'll uncover the 10 U.S. states most aggressively implementing deportation policies in 2025, exploring what's driving these actions and how they're impacting immigrants and local residents alike. And before we get started, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on more engaging content. Let's dive in. Number 10. Florida. Florida, a state known for its beaches and vibrant cultural mix, is taking a hardline approach to deportation in 2025. The Sunshine State has implemented aggressive measures to identify and remove undocumented immigrants. Governor-backed initiatives have ramped up cooperation between state agencies and Federal Immigration and Customs Enforcement (ICE). According to Miami Herald, Florida's new policies require local law enforcement to notify ICE when undocumented individuals are detained, even for minor offenses. The crackdown has hit agricultural and hospitality sectors particularly hard. Many businesses, reliant on immigrant labor, are struggling to find workers. Advocates argue that these policies are creating labor shortages and harming the economy. Communities with large immigrant populations, such as Miami and Orlando, are feeling the strain. Families report living in fear of being separated, with schools and churches often becoming sanctuaries for those avoiding deportation. State officials defend the measures, claiming they are necessary to uphold immigration laws and ensure public safety. However, critics point to rising racial profiling and human rights concerns as unintended consequences. Despite the tensions, Florida remains a key destination for immigrants due to its economic opportunities and diverse culture. The state's deportation efforts, however, have placed many in precarious situations. As debates continue, Florida's approach to immigration enforcement reflects the broader divide on how the U.S. should handle undocumented residents. Number 9. Texas. Texas, a state with a long and complex history of immigration, has become one of the most active states in deportation efforts in 2025. With its vast border with Mexico, Texas is at the forefront of immigration enforcement. Governor-led initiatives have introduced laws allowing state troopers to arrest undocumented individuals and transfer them directly to ICE custody. According to Texas Tribune, these policies have led to a significant increase in deportation cases. Border towns like El Paso and McAllen have seen heightened enforcement, with frequent checkpoints and raids targeting undocumented workers. Many immigrants in these areas live in constant fear of detention. The construction and agriculture industries, heavily reliant on immigrant labor, have reported severe workforce shortages. Businesses are urging the state to reconsider its approach, citing economic damage as a growing concern. Human rights organizations have criticized Texas for its handling of deportation cases, accusing authorities of violating due process and targeting vulnerable communities. Despite these criticisms, state officials argue that their actions are necessary to maintain border security. Cities like Austin and Dallas, which have traditionally been more immigrant-friendly, are seeing growing divisions between local governments and state authorities over deportation policies. Texas remains a state of opportunity for many, but its mass deportation efforts are reshaping the lives of thousands, leaving families and communities in turmoil. Number 8. Arizona. Arizona, long known for its tough stance on immigration, continues to escalate deportation efforts in 2025. The state's policies have drawn both praise and criticism as it navigates the complexities of immigration enforcement. State legislation now requires employers to use E-Verify, a system that checks the legal status of workers, with strict penalties for noncompliance. According to Arizona Republic, this has led to a surge in workplace raids and deportations. Border enforcement remains a priority for Arizona. With enhanced surveillance and increased patrols, the state has intensified its crackdown on undocumented crossings, often detaining migrants in controversial conditions. The construction and hospitality industries, which rely heavily on immigrant labor, are experiencing significant disruptions. Employers are struggling to fill positions, and some businesses are considering relocating to states with less stringent policies. Advocacy groups have raised concerns about the humanitarian impact of Arizona's deportation efforts. Reports of family separations and inadequate legal representation for detainees are sparking public outcry. Despite the challenges, many Arizona residents support the state's tough stance, believing it is necessary to address illegal immigration and protect local jobs. However, divisions persist, particularly in urban areas like Phoenix and Tucson. Arizona's deportation policies highlight the tension between enforcing immigration laws and balancing economic and humanitarian concerns. The state's actions will undoubtedly shape its future for years to come. Number 7. Georgia. Georgia, a state with a growing immigrant population, has ramped up its deportation efforts in 2025. The state's aggressive policies are reshaping its industries and communities. Under new legislation, law enforcement agencies are required to cooperate fully with ICE. This has resulted in an increase in arrests and deportations, particularly in areas with large immigrant populations like Atlanta and Gainesville. Agriculture, a cornerstone of Georgia's economy, is facing significant challenges. According to Atlanta Journal-Constitution, farmers are struggling to harvest crops due to a shortage of workers, many of whom were undocumented. The crackdown has sparked fear among immigrant communities. Families are avoiding public spaces, and many children of undocumented parents are missing school to avoid detection. Critics argue that Georgia's deportation policies are not only inhumane but also economically damaging. Advocacy groups have launched campaigns to provide legal assistance and support for affected families. State officials defend the measures, claiming they are essential for enforcing immigration laws and protecting local resources. However, the long-term economic and social impacts of these policies remain uncertain. Georgia's stance on deportation reflects broader national debates over immigration. As the state continues its crackdown, the effects on its communities and industries are becoming increasingly evident. Number 6. Alabama. Alabama has made headlines in 2025 for its strict deportation policies, which have significantly impacted its immigrant communities. Known for its tough stance on immigration, the state has doubled down on enforcement this year. Legislation passed in 2024 expanded state and local law enforcement's authority to collaborate with ICE, leading to an uptick in deportation operations. According to AL.com, traffic stops and workplace raids have become common methods for identifying undocumented individuals. The agricultural sector, a vital part of Alabama's economy, has been hit hard. Many farmers report labor shortages due to the deportation of immigrant workers, leaving crops unharvested and profits dwindling. Immigrant communities in cities like Birmingham and Montgomery are increasingly living in fear. Advocacy groups report that families are avoiding hospitals, schools, and other public services for fear of being detained. State officials argue that these measures are necessary to enforce immigration laws and protect Alabama's workforce. Critics, however, claim the policies are inhumane and economically short-sighted, creating more harm than good. Efforts by advocacy organizations to provide legal aid and resources have ramped up, but many families remain vulnerable to abrupt detentions and deportations. As Alabama continues its aggressive approach to deportation, the state faces mounting questions about the social and economic costs of these policies. Number 5. Tennessee. Tennessee, a state with a growing immigrant population, has taken a hardline stance on deportation in 2025, implementing some of the toughest measures in the Southeast. Under recent legislation, Tennessee law enforcement agencies are required to notify ICE of any undocumented individuals detained for crimes, regardless of severity. This has led to a surge in deportation, according to Tennessee Lookout. The state's agriculture and construction sectors, which depend heavily on immigrant labor, are feeling the impact. Employers are reporting significant workforce shortages as many undocumented workers leave or are deported. Immigrant communities in Nashville and Memphis have become focal points for deportation operations. Advocacy groups have described the environment as one of fear, with many families avoiding public spaces and services. State leaders argue that their strict immigration policies are aimed at reducing illegal immigration and ensuring public safety. However, critics counter that these measures disproportionately target nonviolent individuals and disrupt entire communities. Efforts to support affected families include legal aid initiatives and community-organized safe spaces, but these resources are often overwhelmed by the sheer volume of cases. As Tennessee's deportation policies intensify, The state faces growing scrutiny over the balance between enforcing immigration laws and addressing the humanitarian consequences. Number 4. North Carolina. North Carolina is another southern state that has taken a strong stance on deportation in 2025, with policies that have drawn both praise and criticism. The state recently passed legislation requiring businesses to verify employee legal status using E-Verify, leading to increased workplace audits and deportations. According to News and Observer, this has created significant challenges for industries like construction and agriculture. Immigrant communities in urban centers like Charlotte and Raleigh are experiencing heightened fears of detention. Many undocumented residents have stopped using public transportation and other services to avoid interactions with authorities. North Carolina's government defends its deportation policies, citing the need to enforce federal immigration laws and prioritize jobs for legal residents. However, business leaders warned that these measures are creating labor shortages and harming the state's economy. Advocacy groups have raised concerns about the humanitarian impact, noting an increase in family separations and children left without caretakers after deportations. Despite the challenges, North Carolina's immigrant population remains an integral part of its economy and culture. Efforts to support affected individuals include grassroots legal assistance programs and community networks. The state's approach to deportation highlights the broader tensions between economic needs and immigration enforcement, a debate that continues to shape its policies. Number 3. Mississippi. Mississippi, a state with a large agricultural base, has intensified its deportation efforts in 2025, leaving many immigrant communities vulnerable. New laws require local law enforcement to cooperate with ICE, leading to a significant increase in detentions and deportations. According to Mississippi Today, this has disproportionately affected rural areas with high concentrations of immigrant workers. The agricultural sector, particularly poultry farming, is struggling to adapt. Employers report major labor shortages as undocumented workers leave the state or face deportation, disrupting supply chains and local economies. Immigrant communities in towns like Jackson and Hattiesburg are under immense pressure. Advocacy groups describe a climate of fear, with families avoiding school, hospitals, and even grocery stores to evade detection. State officials argue that these measures are necessary to enforce immigration laws and protect jobs for citizens. Critics, however, highlight the humanitarian consequences, including increased poverty and family separations. Churches and community organizations are stepping in to provide shelter and resources for affected families, but their capacity is limited. Mississippi's tough stance on immigration enforcement reflects broader national trends, but the state's economic dependence on immigrant labor complicates the picture. Number 2. Oklahoma. Oklahoma has emerged as one of the leading states in deportation efforts in 2025, implementing policies that have transformed its approach to immigration enforcement. The state has introduced strict laws mandating cooperation between local police and ICE, resulting in a sharp rise in deportations. According to Oklahoma Watch, workplace raids and random immigration checks have become more frequent. The agriculture and oil industries, which are critical to Oklahoma's economy, are feeling the pinch. Many employers report labor shortages as undocumented workers flee the state or face deportation. Immigrant communities in cities like Oklahoma City and Tulsa are living in fear. Reports of families being separated during routine traffic stops have drawn criticism from advocacy groups and human rights organizations. State leaders argue that their policies are necessary to uphold the rule of law and ensure public safety. However, critics point out the economic and social toll these measures are taking on local communities. Efforts by local organizations to provide legal aid and support for immigrants have intensified, but many families still lack access to resources. Oklahoma's aggressive approach to deportation reflects its prioritization of immigration enforcement, but the broader implications for its economy and society remain uncertain. Number 1. Colorado. Colorado has taken a controversial stance in 2025, increasing deportations under state-coordinated programs. The policy has sparked widespread debate, with advocates citing border security and critics raising human rights concerns. Colorado's immigration policies have taken a sharp turn this year, with a significant rise in deportations reported by Denver Post. The state has deported over 18,000 individuals in the first half of 2025 alone, making it one of the most active in this regard. Much of the state's deportation activity stems from its enhanced cooperation with federal agencies. Colorado has amplified participation in the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement (ICE 287G) program, which deputizes local law enforcement to carry out immigration enforcement duties. The agricultural sector, a cornerstone of Colorado's economy, has been heavily impacted. Immigrant workers, many of whom are undocumented, play a crucial role in the state's farming and ranching industries. Their sudden removal has left employers scrambling to fill vacancies. Critics argue that the policy disproportionately targets families and individuals contributing to the state's economy and culture. Advocacy groups, such as the Colorado Immigrant Rights Coalition (CIRC), have highlighted cases where longtime residents have been separated from their families. Mass deportation efforts in these 10 states are reshaping the lives of thousands of immigrants and their communities in 2025. While proponents argue that these measures are necessary for upholding the law, critics highlight the profound social and economic consequences. What are your thoughts on these developments? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and explore Globe Discoveries for more in-depth insights into today's most pressing issues. Thank you for watching.